And Sean, your journey into wrestling always surprised me because I heard that you were working on Wall Street first. And anytime that I'm born and raised in New York City, so anytime that I hear Wall Street and I try to describe wrestling to someone of the Wall Street variety, it's not really met with kind words back. So I'm curious how your coworkers felt at the time when you did leave to go pursue interviewing wrestlers.
Even worse than that was the entertainment industry, which I was in since, my late teens. So trying to explain wrestling to so I'd be working on a film and someone would say, "Hey, I hear you on a production company."
Yeah.
Kayfabe Commentaries it's talking about. So I say yes. So there's two hurdles before I get to the word wrestling. Always. It was always yes, yes, I do. What kind of stuff do you do? Sports-based programming with professional athletes.
That's good. That's good.
If they can't leave well enough alone, it's wrestling. Okay, you either get it or you don't. They're professional wrestlers, and they're interesting people more so than any other sport, and that's why we do this. And yeah, so that was always tricky. There was not a lot of overlap in the worlds. Occasionally, I'd be working with someone like my age, and like as a kid, they'd be like, "Oh my God, I used to go to the LA Sports Arena when I was a kid and watch WWF. Talk to those guys." Yes, I do. But usually, they just they didn't understand it.
Yeah. Which
Now, I was
is
on the periphery of finance on Wall Street. I was working more on the creative end, doing presentations
okay.
and pitches. Um, but still, I was I guess people closest to me there knew what I was starting because I started it up while I was over there, and on such a whim. My business partner Anthony was a friend of mine when I was in college, and we were total wrestling marks, and he introduced me to the sheets. I didn't even know what they were until he showed me the Observer and the Torch when I was in college. And so anyway, we're on the phone when there's nothing going on at work. It was like midnight. I'm still in the city, have my feet up, looking out the window over the East River. And he goes, the only thing that's not been done in wrestling, um, I don't know how young you were. When laser discs and DVDs would be released for really famous movies, they'd have the director or star do a commentary track over the whole film. So you could watch the film as it is, but then you could select an alternate track and you're watching the film, but the director's telling you, yeah, we needed a crane shot for this here. And if you notice at the bottom of and like, we love that shit. He
Yeah.
said alternate commentary tracks, but for wrestling matches. I'm like, oh, so who would do them? He goes, the talent. He said, so you put on your iPod and you click a file and you put on Hogan versus the Sheik when he wins the title, and the Sheik is talking you through everything. It's like sitting on the couch with the wrestler and watching the match. You watch all the historical wrestling matches again, but with talent sitting with you. It's like, wow. I said, listen, I said, this is crazy. I said, but can you get me the technology that now remember this is like 2007, so we're a different place.
Yeah.
Um, but you can still buy songs from the MP3 store. I was like, can we do like an MP3 store where a fan can buy it and they get a file? And then we can tell them where to start it in the match because we couldn't sell the video of the match. Obviously, we didn't own it.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, sure. And we found the way to do it. I blindly got on the phone. I called a wrestling agent, a booker, and I looked to see when people would be in town, so I didn't have to incur the travel. And I called and I booked our first night. We booked Greg Valentine and the Honky Tonk Man. And after their match, I made a plan to clandestinely meet them in a hotel room down the hall from the hotel they were staying at. They let me know where they were, so I didn't want to. I knew other people were bringing them in and going to have them doing stuff, and I wanted to leech off of their expenses, basically. So yeah, we set up in a room down the hall, and Greg got back from the event with Honk, and I told them what room, and they came down and they sat and we put on headphones, and we individually covered like 10 or 15 matches with me and them on the headset. And though it was for a different product than what our shoot interviews became, I call it like our garage band tapes.
Yeah.
We ended up releasing all of them on a in one set, in a box set. And you can hear in those interviews kind of what we ended up starting to do on video. So we did that for a few months, and then but we had to sell them so cheap. It was a couple of bucks, I think, for per match, and uh, it became very obvious as you're paying talent what we're paying them. And if wrestling fans finding such an offbeat product like this, there weren't many. It was like a niche of a niche of a niche. I said, listen, we're going to have to go to something more traditional like video.
Yeah.
People know what a shooter interview is. If you tell people, yeah, it's a new kind of shooter interview, but you tell people, yeah, they're downloadable audio commentary alternative tracks for wrestling matches. What?
Yeah.
We couldn't educate the market quickly enough to make money to stay in business. So I said to Anthony, I said, we'll do it. We'll do it differently. My background was production, right? So in entertainment. So I was like, you're gonna light it, we're gonna mic it, it's gonna look good, it's gonna sound good, it's gonna be a real interview. I might even put on a jacket to sit next to the talent and be on camera, not the floating disenfranchised detached voice flying around asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there, it's gonna be a talk show. We'll format it. Let's do something called guest booker was actually called And the Year Was, which I'm so glad I changed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, where we get a booker to come on and we give them a year and a federation and book it, one that they were not responsible for. So we had Sullivan come in and book WWF in 1984. If he couldn't have Hogan, could he still have made the company become what it was in the cable TV era? Just thought it was a great concept. You get the writers of Seinfeld and you make them write an episode of Star Trek and you film it to see the creative process. So that was the idea, and that's how Guest Booker came. And then we were like, wow, we're doing this with Guest Booker. We could do another show called You Shoot, where the fans ask questions. We can do a show, and that's how the company was born.
Rewind, recap, relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interviews.